In 1997, a neuroscientist at the University of Pennsylvania placed a group of people inside a brain scanner and told them to pray. What appeared on his screens confused him. The data was so specific that he spent the next 25 years trying to fully explain it, and in his own words, he never completely could. What he found was this: a praying brain doesn't just calm down, it reorganizes, it restructures. By every measurable marker, it becomes more capable of experiencing peace. The problem is, a man named Paul had already described exactly this in a letter written around 62 AD in language so precise it reads like a neuroscience textbook. This is what happened when a brain scanner confirmed a Bible verse. By the end of this video, you'll understand what actually happens inside your brain when you pray. You'll see why one specific word in Philippians 4 is the most accurate description of the brain's anxiety circuit ever written outside of a laboratory. And you'll understand why the peace the Bible promises isn't poetry. It's a documented biological state. Dr. Andrew Newberg is not a pastor. He's not a theologian. He is a neuroscientist at Jefferson University who spent 2 decades scanning the brains of people in prayer using a technology called SPECT imaging. SPECT measures blood flow. More blood to a region means more activity. Less means less. When his subjects prayed, 3 things happened with consistency. First, blood flow to the prefrontal cortex increased significantly. In one key study, frontal lobe activity rose by 9%. The prefrontal cortex is the most evolved region of the human brain. It governs focus, decision-making, compassion, and, critically, the ability to regulate fear. When it's active, you think clearly. You can choose your response instead of just reacting. When it goes quiet, during panic, rage, or severe depression, you lose access to those capacities entirely. Prayer turned it on. Second, amygdala activity dropped. The amygdala is your brain's alarm system. It fires in milliseconds when it perceives a threat. It produces anxiety, fear, and fight-or-flight responses. It doesn't reason, it reacts. Prayer turned it down. Third, and this is where Newberg became publicly careful about his own findings, the peace that followed this pattern was, and I'm quoting his words directly, beyond what could be accounted for through the standard mechanisms of stress reduction alone. He'd found something he couldn't fully explain. Hold that thought. We're coming back to it. 62 AD. Paul is writing from a Roman prison to the church in the city of Philippi. Philippi was not an ordinary city. It was a Roman military colony, a city of veterans, fortified walls, and armed garrisons posted at every gate. Paul's readers didn't just understand military metaphors, they lived inside them. That context matters for what he writes next. Philippians 4 verses 6 and 7. You've likely heard this hundreds of times, but hear the Greek this time. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. That is the instruction. Now here's the result. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. The word translated guard is the Greek word phroresis. This is not a gentle word, it is a military term. It describes a garrison, armed soldiers permanently stationed at the walls of a city to prevent enemy entry. Paul is not saying God's peace will comfort you like a warm feeling. He is saying it will stand watch at the gates of your mind like an armed sentinel, preventing the threat from breaking through. Now return to the scanner. Prayer strengthens the prefrontal cortex and reduces amygdala activity. In neuroscience, the PFC literally acts as a governor over the amygdala. Researchers have a specific name for this: top-down inhibitory regulation, the higher brain structure suppressing the reactivity of the lower one. Paul called it a garrison at the gates. Neuroscience calls it prefrontal amygdala inhibitory connectivity. Same architecture, different centuries. One more piece. Your brain has a network that activates when you're not doing anything focused. Scientists call it the default mode network. When it's running, your mind wanders. You replay past conversations. You rehearse worst-case scenarios. You spiral. Researchers have directly linked an overactive default mode network to anxiety disorders, depression, and addiction. It is, in measurable biological terms, the circuit of worry. Here's what focused prayer does to it: quiets it down. A 2023 study using ultra-high-strength brain imaging technology found that focused attention practices produced significant reductions in default mode network activity, specifically in the regions that drive self-referential worry and rumination. Now read Paul's instruction again. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation by prayer and petition with thanksgiving. In neuroscience terms, interrupt the default mode network's rumination cycle and redirect attention toward focused, intentional, grateful prayer. The instruction Paul gave is the mechanism researchers independently discovered 2,000 years later. Here is the full picture side by side. Paul's formula, 3 steps. 1. Interrupt the anxiety. Do not be anxious about anything. 2. Engage focused, grateful prayer by prayer and petition with thanksgiving. 3. The result, a peace that stands guard. Neuroscience, 2,000 years later, the same 3 steps. 1. Interrupt the default mode network. 2. Engage focused attention with gratitude. Gratitude specifically activates the medial prefrontal cortex and the brain's reward systems. 3. The prefrontal cortex strengthens and takes its regulatory position over the amygdala. The steps match. The mechanism matches. The outcome matches. And the part Newberg couldn't explain, the peace that exceeded what the biology alone should produce. Paul had already named it, the peace that transcends all understanding. He wrote it would surpass human comprehension. Newberg said it surpassed what the science could account for. 2 men, 1,935 years apart, describing the same phenomenon, with the exact same caveat. Here is what this means for you practically. When you pray, not mechanically, not passively, but with focused attention and genuine gratitude, you are activating the most evolved region of your brain, quieting the alarm system, and entering a peace state that neuroscientists have documented but not fully explained. And Newberg found something else. Long-term prayer physically thickens the prefrontal cortex. The brain structurally adapts to the practice. You are building a more peace-capable mind over time. Not metaphorically, structurally. The Bible didn't need the scanner to tell you this, but maybe the scanner helps you believe it when you need to most. That phrase in Philippians, the peace that stands guard, was never just comfort language. It was a precise description of a biological state that a neuroscientist would spend 25 years trying to explain, arrive at the same answer Paul did, and still not fully account for it. If this changed how you see prayer, drop a comment below. I read everyone. And if you want the Bible decoded with this kind of depth every week, subscribe. We are just getting started.